Shalom Aleichem. Okay, we're going to continue another 10 more minutes. Sichos Haran. Okay, so we're up to Tes Zayin, 16, yeah? So Nachman says the following. He says, he says, you should know, we call the Mamadaka, and we have the ability to cry out in a very, very low sound. It's Oka Gedoyle Ma'oid Ma'oid, in a great cry. And he explained, and we have the ability to do it in a way where no one will actually hear that voice. Because he's going to show us how to do it. He says, because we're able to do it in a way where nothing comes out, no voice actually comes out of us. Rather, this cry, this tzaka, is called the momadaka. It's like a silent. It's like a silent cry. And he says this, every person has this capability. He's going to explain how. Continuing, the Haini explains, the way you do it is that we picture in our mind, we picture in our mind, a scream. Yeah, and we allow we to enter this coil, this voice of a scream in our mind. And then we connect it to our das and we basically picture in our mind, and we mamash imagine that we're screaming with the niggin, the song, just like somebody was screaming. So imagine we imagine somebody screaming in our mind. We can do whatever we want with our mind, and we picture in our mind someone is screaming. So far, we're not doing anything. We're just imagining this. He's going to explain how that you actually could scream in your mind with anyone hearing you. Continuing, he says, and he says what enters through this is actually Yitzchok Moshe he says it's actually like you're screaming, like you'll see. He'll explain the science behind it. That it's mamash like we're screaming, with this aspect of kol de mamadaka, a silent coil. The shim adam lo yishma klal, and no other person is going to hear this call, this cry. Because he explains, continuing, he says, because the truth is that we're not picturing only this tzaka, this cry, right? Because he explains, yes, some point is bereya. He says we have nerves in our lungs. Okay, the voice comes from the lung. He says we have nerves in our lung. And through these nerves, right, the coil, our voice, goes out. V'gam yesh some point is dakim hayotzim minarei elamoyach. He says that we also have these nerves, these wires from our lungs that go to our minds, right? Because we know, voice, comes from the mind. We think things, and then it goes to the lungs, and then then we're able to speak it out. So Nachman was explaining the science over here, that there are nerves, right, that allow the voice to go from our lungs, out, but there's also nerves that go from our lung to our moyach, to our brain. Continuing, he says therefore we actually have the ability to make this coil enter derech hasaponis hadakim hochem elamoyach. We can actually just route this coil from the nerves from our lungs. We can bypass it. It should go outside. We go straight to our mind. Yitzchok Moshe he says by crying in our crying out in our mind, by picturing in our thoughts this cry, and it's mamash. He says that it's a real cry. And like this, we're bringing this coil, to our mind. Yichel and he explains, and you have the ability to stand in Kama B'nei Adam, that you could be in a crowd, many people around you. The Yitzchok Moshe, and you could actually be screaming, from a very calm place, right, in your mind. Shem Adam Lo Yishma Kanal, and no person will even know what you're doing. He's showing us amazing capability. Okay, I'm just gonna throw this out there. Maybe I'll wrap it up in the end, but he's telling us that this is how things work. Okay, and if we find ourselves that we have done, screaming in our mind past, doesn't mean that something wrong with us. This is actually how it works. Okay. Continuing, Vilafom explains, and sometimes Ichali Shomet Mizeh Isaac Koil Dak. She Nishma, he says what can happen sometimes is a small voice can actually escape from your mouth. Shnishma, that can be heard. Kimach Mashnichas Koil Derechas and Poinus Lamoyach Elamoyach Nichali Shomet Nefom Sheetz Koil Derechas and Poinus Lametzian Koil. I believe with Dakas Godel, he says that sometimes what can happen is when you're trying to do this silent cry from the mind, it can actually slip out a very low sound from your mouth, just because you're bypassing the mouth. But he says it would be very low. Okay. Continuing, if a dibber, and he explains if a dibber, that when a person tries to cry without words, meaning when he doesn't bring out any words in this cry, it's actually easier to cry. He says it's easier to cry, to scream loud without words. Okay. Because he explains, continuing, when a person has to, bring out the words, it's much harder. It's a coil to connect the coil, the scream, to your thought, and to allow the words to come out of the pipe that brings out the voice. Aval, he finishes aval below dibber, but without dibber, without voice. Kal yoser, it's actually aval below dibber without words. Kal yoser, it's easier. Okay, so that's the end of Tez Zion. Just to give a little sum up, so he's teaching us an amazing science of how our mind works, and very powerful because. He explained earlier, I think in one of the earlier ones, that to be able to cry litzoik al Hashem, this is amazing. It's and to be able to scream, to cry out, but it's not so easy. We're not talking when we lose ourselves and we scream, get angry. That's not good screaming, obviously, because then become bekas, and it's like over the zora when you bekas. So that we're not talking about that screaming, but he's talking about vanitzak, litzoik. We know in the story of before we came out of Mitzrayim, we did vanitzak. We did this real cry, right? But he's explaining that it's very hard to do that. We know this. We can't just go and scream with das, with machshava. We're embarrassed. Who wants to scream? But there's a major benefit to be able to scream, right? Because that means it's coming from a real place. So he's showing us little signs how we work, which is that we have this ability, basically, to scream without words, and he shows how it works because the words, we have these nerves, and the nerves take from the lungs, and it goes to the mouth, but we also go from the lungs to the moyach, to the mach, so we can actually bypass it. And he says it's a very good eitzah, and you can be very calm. And right now you want to do your zbud this. You go into your room, and you just still can't get yourself to scream. So you do the silent cry. You sit there, and now that you know how the science works, Again, he shows you have to picture with the niggin, so the scream. So, and this is a tremendous eitzah. And sometimes, he says, give me in a crowded area, and you're feeling you want to cry out to Hashem, but you can't. But he says, no, you could by doing this eitzah, and he's showing you how all this works. Just one last thing to finish off. If we didn't know this and we found ourselves, in aggravated situations, and we found ourselves screaming in our mind because we didn't want to scream at, the people, and we think we're hurting our head. No. Now that we know this, now we can use this and allow ourselves to be calm and relaxed and use it as an outlet. Don't think that something wrong. Don't run to the psychiatrist that, I feel like I'm screaming in my mind, and the psychiatrist will tell you, you have racing thoughts. No. Don't fall for that. Okay? You need the tzaddikim to give you the eitzes how to live. Okay, we're gonna stop over here.